Hi everybody, welcome back. On this video here, we're going to be learning about loops. And loops are just sequence of code that gets repeated over and over again until a condition is met. Until we reach a conclusion about what we're testing, the code gets repeated over and over again, all right? So I'm going to show you exactly how that works. I'm going to open my code editor. I'm going to open a window. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do a save as on this blank.html on my JavaScript folder. I'm gonna call this loops. I'm gonna open this in the browser. All right, right here. I'm gonna open a script tag. Now this is actually a very important topic right here. Actually, one of the most important in programming. So pay very close attention and try to understand it. I'm gonna give you some exercise files based on this, and so that way you can have something to reference on, because this is actually very important. So loops are, this is the syntax of loop. First of all, let me just show you that it's very similar to an if statement. And we talked about if statement, and we say that until this condition is true, if this condition is true, then we execute everything in the middle, right? In the middle of these brackets. Well, the while statement is very similar. We replace the if keyword with something called while, because this is going to get repeated over and over again. So while this condition here, condition is true or false, and this is the difference here, one of them, because the if statement, this had to be true. This could be either true or false. Repeat this, and then this is the other difference. Repeat this over and over again until reach answer, right? So until we reach a condition, we don't stop repeating this code. And you might be asking yourself, why is this useful? Well, sometimes we need to kind of do things multiple times in programs, and we do it a lot. Let's say, for example, I want to change all the paragraphs in a website. I want to change the color of it. We can use a loop for that, because I don't want to keep writing the code over and over again for each paragraph, right? Another thing is, like, let's say for a form, if I want to check 10 form fields, I want to go through each of the form fields and I want to check if a value is there. We can't do that on, you can't do that very good unless we use a loop to loop through all that form object. Right now, we got to repeat our code multiple times to do that. So you can imagine I have to repeat something like check form 1, and then I have to write the code again, check form 1 again, check form 2 and check form 3, like that, and with a loop I can just go ahead and say check the form. If any field in the form is equal to this, I want you to do this. You see what I mean? So it saves us a lot of time. It saves a lot of time. So anyway, let me show you how do we initialize a while loop. We use a variable, and we usually name a counter or I for initializer, and we put a value of 0. All right, and that's how we start the loop. So we say something like this. Let me just give you an example. While counter is smaller, right, or less than, because this is a less than symbol, 5, for example, I want you to repeat something here. And I'm going to use an alert function just to show you what happens to counter every time it goes around. So because I want counter is equal to 0 right now, but every time it goes around, I'm supposed to increment it. That way this condition will reach a destination. Right now, if I leave counter at 0 and I don't do anything with it, this condition is always going to be false, and this loop will repeat over and over again, and your whole page will crash. And you can try that right now. You can just write this code and try it and see what happens to your code, to your page. You're gonna have to turn it off right here, quit it, click on task manager or activity monitor and try to close your application, because it will crash. Don't do that. I would never suggest for you to do that. I'm just joking. Don't do that. But anyways, so what we need to do with counter is increment it, but let me explain to you how this works first. So we initialize a counter, we put a value of 0 here of this variable counter, and we are testing right here the condition. So we set up the index, we test the condition. While counter is smaller than 5, I want you to alert counter on the screen. So right now what's going to alert is 0 because counter has a value of 0. So it's going to go here, check, and it's going to execute this, and it's going to go to this bracket, and it's going to go over again and check again, because that's what loops do. And it's going to say, oh, counter is still equal to 0. So it's going to keep going because it's still less than 5. It's going to go again here. Well, it's still 0. It's less than 5. So it's going to keep executing over and over and over and over again, infinity. That's why it crashes. What we need to do is do something with counter. We need to increment counter. Counter, and this is how we increment it. Counter plus 1. Right here, plus 1. So now if I refresh here, now counter the first time around is worth 0, right? Okay, now counter is worth 1 when it went the second time. Third time, second, 3, 2, 3, 4, and then it's going to stop. Why did it stop at 4 and not 5? Well, it has to be less than 5. If it's equal to 5, it doesn't execute. All right? If you wanted your code to execute when it's equal, you have to put the equal right here. So if you save it and refresh it, you're going to see it goes to 5 now because it's less than or equal to 5. This is what that means right here. All right, now there is a shorthand version of writing this, which I like. It's so commonly used that people just use this. All right, and we just put the 2 pluses there. That means increment it to 1. All right, so I'm gonna refresh it, and you can see that it gets incremented. All right, so that's how you write a while loop. I'm not gonna go into details about everything that you can do with a while loop. I'm just explaining the major components, just like I promised you in the beginning. So make sure you have this right there in your mind and practice it. I'm gonna give you some examples, all right, and I'm gonna make a special exercise files probably on one of these lectures there that you can see with some examples on some while loops code, all right, so that way you can get some practice on it. So the next loop that I want to explain to you about is the let's do the do while loop. All right, and now this is very a little different. The syntax is a little different than this one because the do while is gonna do something before it loops around. So the code is like this. I don't want you to get confused. I just want to explain it to you, and I wasn't going to do it, but just because this is a major component type of thing, I should just explain the while loop only. But I want to give you a little bonus and explain the other details there. All right, so first we need to set up our index. So we do the same thing we did with a while, and we're going to set up our index, and let's call it I this time, and we're going to set it to 0. Usually this means initializer, you know, but whatever, you can, it could mean anything to you. And then we're just going to do something before we go around. Let's actually alert counter here, and let's just add something to it. I'm going to add a string saying while loop, and you see the way we add strings is with these apostrophes there, and then the way we put it together with a variable is with a plus symbol. This is called concatenation. All right, that's how we put variables or strings together. You make sure you do, and this is also used for math. All right, well, right now when you do it with a string and when you do it with a variable, it will make sure that it treats this as a string. So that's how JavaScript knows, because right now if you mix it with a string and a variable or a number, JavaScript is gonna take this whole thing and make it a string. But anyway, if you don't understand that, don't worry about it. Just know that this is gonna print out a while loop and the number with it. All right, and here the while, so the do while is gonna do something before, and we're gonna alert I, but we're gonna write something. I'm gonna say do I. This is just so you can see what's going on. Do while loop. All right, and I'm going to end it. I'm gonna put it together with the variable I. So I'm concatenating there. I don't have to actually write that right there. All right, and it's gonna do that, and then I need to increment it. Make sure that you always increment it. If not, you're gonna get one of those infinite loops. And now you might be asking yourself, where is the do while? What is the while keyword? Where do you put it? Here, here, where? Well, we actually test the condition at the end of the loop. Yeah, this is the funny thing, right? And then we say I is less than 5, for example. And this is it does the same thing. It's just it executes the code before it gets to before it starts testing. So we see something before before it starts testing. We don't see anything here until this condition. Until we keep seeing things. We don't see anything before. We got to go through the loop to start seeing things. Here we see this before we get inside the loop. All right. So if I refresh here, we can see while loop 0, while loop 1, while loop 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then it starts with a do while 0, do while 1, 2, do while. All right. And now the last one that I want to show you, and this is actually the most common used one. A lot of people use this one, and this is called the for loop. It's so common that that's actually the one that I use all the time. All right. So it's just you use the word, the keyword for, and then you do everything in one line. This is why it's so common, because it's so super easy to do. So you say variable I, right, and you set up your index right here. Put a 0 there, and then you say and then you test your condition right here also. So you can say, and then you divide this by a semicolon. Semicolon usually means stop and then go to the next code, line of code, just like CSS. You stop it and you go to the next line of code. Very common. And then you increment it. So we set up the index, we check for the condition, we increment it. All right. And then we do something here, and we say, let's just do the alert. Put a string in there and say for loop, and then we concatenate it. I don't know why they call it that. They could just call it, why not add it to it, right? Make it simple. So we're gonna add the I to it, and then we're just gonna say refresh. The while is gonna come first, and it's gonna do the first 5. Then actually that was the while loop. This is the do while. And this box is all over the place. This is the for loop, the last one, and that's it, as you can see there. All right, so these are the 3. I'm gonna give you this code, don't worry, and I'm gonna show you another example where you can we're gonna go through all the paragraphs and change some color or something like that. I'm just gonna give you an example, that way you can have an idea on how this works. All right, so anyway, I hope you enjoy this video, this lecture here, and I hope you understand it. If you don't understand it, make sure that you practice, because this is actually one of the most important things in programming. You have to understand how they work. All right, I'm gonna try to give you all the information I can to get you ready for the advanced course, but you need to practice. The more hours you have practicing code, the easier it will be for you. And don't worry if you don't understand it. I didn't understand it in the beginning, but I kept practicing, and now I can see the code in my head, and I can do things before I even write it. So you're gonna get to that point. Don't get desperate. You're gonna do it, but make sure that you practice. It's the most important things. Watching these lectures is fine, but practicing will actually do 90% of the learning for you. All right, so anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.